Indiana football has completely reloaded for 2026 thanks to the transfer portal, but the good news is the Hoosiers aren't done.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day and the nation's #1 sports podcasting network. So thank you for making that. So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The College Football Playoff National Championship game is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action on Monday. Visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every single game day. But we have tons to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers, as Indiana basketball back in action tomorrow, back inside of Assembly Hall tomorrow, coming off of a blown lead and blowout loss against Michigan State. Can they take down a average Iowa basketball team? We'll talk about that. Plus, Indiana favored by 8.5 over Miami in the national championship game, according to our friends at FanDuel. Is that too much, too little, and why it may simply not matter? But the transfer portal is open for today. Today is the final day, right, for the portal to be open for players to enter their name into the portal, but you don't have to be committed somewhere by midnight tonight. You can still be out there floating around and still looking for your next home. You just have to have all your paperwork and everything filled out, the school to approve it, and for you to be entered into the NCAA transfer portal. But the good news for Indiana is they've done a fantastic job at rebuilding and basically filling the gaps of what we're going to have on this team next year, and it's exciting to see. But Indiana is not done in the transfer portal. I do think you will have a couple of more names that are committed, if they have not already, by the time this episode comes out. And if so, we'll have a bonus episode for you here on Locked On Hoosiers. But I still think Indiana would like to add to that running back room. I think Indiana would like to add another offensive lineman, even though you finally have started to, kick that up a little bit and get that into full gear. And I think you feel pretty good about where you stand at most positions. And again, I want to get back to my list that I wrote before the transfer portal opened, or I guess right when it did open. I ranked the positions that Indiana needed 1 through 9. That is looping all offensive linemen and all defensive linemen into one category, rather than going guard and tackles and defensive ends and things like that. I just looped all of those together. And in order, this is what I said Indiana needed in terms of importance. You needed a quarterback. You needed offensive lineman. Wide receiver was number 3. Defensive line was number 4. Tight end was number 5. Running back was 6. Linebacker 7. Safety at 8. And corner at 9. And folks, if you start going through what Indiana has done in all of those positions, I think you've done a pretty darn good job. Quarterback, you got your starter. You got Josh Hoover. You're going to be just fine. Could there be a battle? Absolutely. But Indiana goes and gets the guy that they believe will start for them next year. He's a 1-year rental, and Josh Hoover comes into Indiana football. We look at the offensive line, one that Indiana fans have been up in arms about, and rightfully so. You land your first big commit in Joe Brunner. I think Indiana needs at least 1 more lineman, if not 2. They are in the works to make that happen. But Joe Brunner comes in as a starting guard. You bring back Drew Evans and Bray Lynch. You also bring back a starting tackle in Carter Smith. And so you have some rotational pieces there, plus the guys you're bringing in through the high school ranks. So I don't think we should count them out. But I think Indiana wants to make some moves right there and trying to schedule a couple of more visitors here down the stretch. You look at wide receiver. This one sells itself, right? You went and got Shazz Preston. You also pick up Nick Marsh. That's all you needed, because Tyler Morris is coming back. I know he hasn't been overly productive, but you do bring him back. Charlie Becker, LeBron Bond, things like that. And Omar Cooper is the wild card here, right? He's the one that Indiana, at least publicly, does not know what is going to happen with Omar Cooper. We then move down to the defensive line position, where I think this has been the most impressive for me, honestly. I think Indiana's work in the transfer portal at the defensive line position, whether it's D tackle, defensive end, that edge spot. This has been the most impressive to me. And I think some people would have had defensive line higher on their list of needs for Indiana, or at least in terms of importance, right? Because of all the guys that you're losing in there, God, you went and got so many names in the portal. Joshua Burnham, you go and get Joe Hagel. You bring in Toby Onsensama. You bring in Chidi Obiazor. I mean, you have so many dudes that you went and brought in from the P4 level. That's what gets me excited about who you're bringing in. These are not G5 guys. These are not JUCO guys. You went and got P4 guys. And that's what my buddy Zach Seiko and I were talking about on yesterday's episode on our Big Ten show was Indiana's about to win a national championship, in my opinion, using those guys who were not 5 stars and 4 stars, most of them 3 and below. Now you're bringing in P4 level talent, guys who were that good in high school and now going to come to Bloomington and compete. Yeah, this is going to be some nasty stuff. You look at tight end, you bring in Brock Schott, the guy from Miami, who's an Indiana kid. Funny enough, you are playing Miami, but of course he won't be a part of that. You also had the running back position. I put that at 6. I would be okay if Indiana brings in one more, right? You bring in Turbo Richard, you bring back Lee Beebe Jr. and Kobe Martin. Mekhi Frazier visited yesterday. That's on Thursday. Again, if this is out of date because of how the transfer portal works, if he is committed by this point, we'll have an episode up for you. But if he hasn't, I still think that that's a good possibility for Indiana with Mekhi Frazier, the Michigan State running back, who could step in and be number 1, I think, immediately. But you have several options at that spot. Linebacker, I think you have room to grow there because you're bringing back Isaiah Jones and Elijah Hardy. You have young guys like Kamara and Olinger, who I've continued to talk about as my dude. Jacob Savage as well is in that recruiting class. So you could probably go get a linebacker in the portal if you wanted to. And then I look at the secondary, the safety spot and the cornerback spot. And this is me kind of grading all of this out by also telling you that Indiana's not done. Okay, an offensive lineman or 2, a running back as well, and a linebacker is kind of what I'm looking for here. But secondary, brother, you're good to go. You bring in Preston Zachman. You bring in A.J. Harris. You bring in Jaquan Sanks. You have all these guys that you have brought in from the P4. A.J. Harris is going to be a dude, by the way, the next D'Angelo Pines. You can book that. And then you bring back guys like Rylan Gandy, Jamari Sharp, Amari Farrell, who's already confirmed and re-signed at the safety spot for Indiana. Folks, this team's not going anywhere. This team is absolutely loaded for the 2026 season, and I can't wait. You also brought in a kickoff guy and a kicker. You brought in a starting kicker at the kickoff spot. Radicic is your field goal guy, but you bring in somebody who can be your kickoff guy. So this has been awesome. This has been a masterclass of how to hit the transfer portal and hit it hard. And let's not forget, don't let college football forget either. Indiana's doing this while playing games in the college football playoff and while they're competing and preparing for a national championship game. The calendar's completely broken, but it has not stopped Indiana, who, by the way, is favored by 8.5 points in the national championship game. Hoosiers aren't done in the transfer portal, but they're not done on the field either. We talk about why that spread is too little, too much, or just right for Indiana right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. College football playoff is here. We're down to a game, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day in the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. Right? If you have a bet that you like, that you love for Indiana versus Miami on Monday night, you can use a profit boost on that bet. You were already going to place it, so why not try to get a bigger payout thanks to our friends at FanDuel? It can be Indiana minus 8.5 if you think Miami keeps it close. Maybe you think there's a bunch of points. Maybe you think there's not a lot of points. All of that can be done on FanDuel. You take that profit boost, you apply it to your bet, and you get even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays you instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every single game day, including Monday for the national championship game. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And a reminder that we have our everydayer club right now. And I know a lot of you have already jumped on board with that. I appreciate you. We're having a ton of fun with that. You get so many perks for just $5 a month. Folks, it's worth a cup of coffee, right? And you get so much, and you're really missing out if you're not a part of it with our Locked On Hoosiers Everydayer Club. You get the show ad-free every single day on the audio version, right? So if you're tired of listening to ads, cool. Just give us again, $5 bill, you get it ad-free. You also get access to our Discord server where we're dropping a bunch of comments and we're talking during games and some recruiting things and portal updates and things. You get access to that as a part of this as well. Plus, you get a merch site and extra access and extra content, all sorts of great stuff for just $5 a month. Okay, so check it out. It's our Locked On Hoosiers Everydayer Club. You can find it by searching lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com. That's lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com, or check the link in our description below. It's the Everydayer Club here for Locked On Hoosiers. Indiana favored by 8.5 against the Miami Hurricanes. Now, that is the Friday morning line. It very well could change by the time that we get to Monday. But if you remember, and if you were with us on the live show after Indiana beat Oregon, we watched it go live, and Indiana was favored by 7.5. So in that time frame, the spread has gone up, which for those of you who are not in the betting world, that means Indiana's getting money. That means people are betting on the Hoosiers to beat Miami. And they absolutely should be. Why would they not be betting on Indiana, right? And the question starts to pop up of, is that too many points? Is that not enough? Is it disrespectful for what Indiana's been doing? Is it disrespectful to Miami to be 8.5-point underdogs in your home stadium in the national championship game? Maybe. And all of those could be true, or all of them could be false. And I think for Indiana, look, I know that you have been just waxing teams up to this point, but everything is off the table, in my opinion, in a national title game. Do I think Indiana's the better team? Yeah, absolutely I do. They're easily the better team, and I think they're 2 or 3 touchdowns better than Miami. But that doesn't mean you're going to beat them by that much. That doesn't mean you're going to beat them by double digits. That doesn't mean you're going to beat them at all. But I do think that Indiana should be favored, and I do think that the spread is pretty darn close for what this game could be. Now, funny enough, before the Oregon game, I said that I thought it would be low scoring. I thought it would be a defensive battle. I thought Indiana would have to pull away late, and I was completely wrong because Indiana just dismantled that Oregon defense one play at a time, and a pick 6 to start the game definitely helps your scoring props, but I don't know. This game against Miami could be a little bit more reserved, I guess, for Indiana. That's what I'm curious on. I don't think this is the case because we have not really seen this at all in the 2 years of the Curt Cignetti era in Bloomington. But does Indiana change their identity? Do they change their ways? Do they change how they play the game? Do they change how they call the game? Do they change how they prepare for the game? My instant answer, and I'm sure yours is the same, is, well, no, that doesn't make any sense. Curt Cignetti, all he does is talk about the process and trust the process and do the little things right. And if we play our game, we're going to win every time. I agree. But this is the national championship game. This is a different beast. This is a different animal. And that's a Miami team that might have the best defense you've seen all season long. And to be fair, Miami beat Ohio State by 10. You beat them by 3. Now, you can say whatever you want. It was a late garbage touchdown for Miami, and it absolutely was. But Miami beat Ohio State the same way that Indiana did. So these two teams in that regard are pretty close. But everybody wants to jump on the Hoosiers for what they have done against Alabama, what they did against Oregon, and then in comparison to Miami, struggling with Ole Miss, who's a talented team for sure, getting by Ohio State, and also beating Texas A&M in ugly fashion. Miami's got the game advantage on you. Indiana's got the game of rest upon it, right? And 2 blowouts that haven't been tested in, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whenever the Big Ten championship game was, right? That's the last time Indiana was tested as a football team But if Indiana doesn't change the way they're doing things, if Indiana goes into this game the same way they have all year long, Hoosiers are going to win and win in a runaway. I don't see a world where the Hoosiers play their game and Miami takes them out of it so bad, because Miami's going to do something. They're a good football team. They're a very good football team. There's a reason they've won 3 in a row in the playoffs, and they're playing for a national championship game. They're here for a reason, and they will do things on both sides of the football that will throw Indiana off. And Indiana will do the same thing for Miami. At that point, it's about who responds. Who responds better, who adjusts better, and who has more on their tool belt, who has more plays in the playbook, who has one more execution to make it happen. I'm betting on Indiana. I'm betting on the Hoosiers, because going against them is a terrible idea. Going against them it's a death wish under Curt Cignetti, frankly. And this year, of course, being undefeated and now making a quest to be the first ever 16-0 team in college football history. Hoosiers favored by 8.5. Total is 47.5. That's what both teams are projected to score combined in this football game. So, I mean, you're looking at, if Indiana's favored by 8.5, see if I can do quick math here. I mean, if you have 28-20, right, that's 48. That's about right. It's about 28-20, give or take, Indiana over Miami. I don't think it's that close. I'll give my full prediction on Monday, but I think Indiana is able to win more than that, by more than that. I think Indiana scores more than that, and I also think they hold Miami to less than that as well. But betting lines are just betting lines. That's just people having fun. That's Vegas trying to make a dollar. They have absolutely zero impact. Well, I guess you could ask college basketball on how much impact they have. Wild stuff in the betting scandal world there. But in terms of the actual betting line and the result of the game, for as far as we know, it has zero impact here. This is about the Hoosiers executing and doing what they do. I think Indiana has the better quarterback. I think Indiana has the better running backs. I think Indiana has the better receiving core. I think Indiana has the better offensive line. I think Indiana has the better defensive line. I think Indiana has the better secondary. And most importantly, I think Indiana's got the better coach. So you're telling me with all those things that they're going to lose this game? They could. They absolutely could. But I'm not betting against them. Not here, not ever, not with Curt Cignetti. It's the Hoosiers and the Canes on Monday night in Miami. It is a road game for Indiana, but I'm hoping a lot of Hoosier fans are going to be there. I've heard from a ton of you that are making the trip. I hope you can get there. Use our friends over at Game Time if you're looking for last-minute tickets to get in the door. I know they're expensive, but you do what you got to do for something that could only happen once in our lifetimes, but I'd love to be there again. But don't risk it. Get down there, go to the game, and have a good time. We'll have full coverage for you on Monday with a full episode here. We'll go live Monday night, win or lose, on Locked On Hoosiers for the national championship game. We're also going to go live tomorrow afternoon and talk about Indiana basketball, who's back at home inside of Assembly Hall, and they host Iowa, but not the Iowa team of the past. We talk about that and how the Hoosiers can get back in the win column right after this. All right, final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. We flip over to the hardwood. And I was reminded, and I reminded myself, that I have not had a chance on the pod here on the show to talk about yet Indiana's debacle the other night in the midweek, because our buddy Brian Smith of the Portal Podcast, he was able to do the show for me since I had radio duties for high school coverage. And I have yet to talk about the 81-60 loss against Michigan State, a game where Indiana was up big and they let it go, let Michigan State go on a 19-0 run or something like that. Was that the number that I saw? And you lose 81-60 in a game that you were in for most of the way? What are we doing, man? You let that team run all over you in the second half. And when I look at the Hoosiers box score and you only score 60 points in a Big Ten game, you deserve to lose. Flat out, plain and simple. You deserve to lose if you can only score 60 points in a P5 game. That's ridiculous. 6 points from Sam Alexis. Another pitiful performance by Tucker DeVries. Poor shooting, poor rebounding, poor effort. Tatum Conaway gave you nearly nothing. He did have 9 assists. It's pretty impressive. Problem is, he had 9 of the 17. Okay, that's a problem. Lamar Wilkerson did what he does. Gave you nearly 20, gave you 19. Poor shooting, but you got what you got. Connor Enright, heck, he scored 6 points. That's 6 above his average, I think. Reed Bailey had 5 and 7 rebounds. Impressed with the rebounding number, not the scoring number. Trent Sisley gave you 4 and 2. That's fine. Nick Dorn hit a couple of threes. He's been a consistent shooter for you. But you only score 60 points in this game. You got up less than 50 shots in 40 minutes of play compared to what you allowed by Michigan State. Jeremy Fears going off for 23. I believe most of those were in the first half. Jackson Kohler got his 16 and 10. So you give up a double-double to that dude. And you let 2 guys off the bench score double digits as well. Indiana's a bad defensive team. Plain and simple. Darren DeVries' squad is a bad defensive team. And in the first half, it was fun because you were shooting, you were scoring, and you were playing well. When you're doing that, yeah, you're having a great time. And that's the story of this Indiana basketball team. When they're on and it's fun. When they're not, it might be the most miserable team I've ever seen. Because you know it's going to happen. You know that it's coming. Right? I've gone back and watched it, talked to Brian, seen a bunch of your comments as well. You could feel that it was going downhill and it wasn't going to last, because that's what happens with shooting teams, man. They don't last. They don't survive. You cannot keep it up throughout the most of a game or game to game to game. It's what happened against Nebraska. It's what happened against Michigan State. You had 2 good shooting halves out of the 4 total in the last 2, and then you blew it and got beat. This team is so inconsistent, but so consistent at the same time, if that makes any sense. And now here comes Iowa. Here come the Hawkeyes to town. And if you haven't done your research on Iowa, don't worry, I have. They're not the Iowa of old. Don't think Iowa and think of the big dudes who just dominated Indiana in the past in the paint. They're not really built like that this year. I don't know what happened there, but 12-5, obviously they got some changes and things going on as well. 12-5 are the Iowa Hawkeyes. Bennett Sturz is the dude. Bennett Sturz is legit. This is a guard-heavy team. If you can believe that, they're led by 2 guards. They are led by 2 guards. Nobody on this team, this is a wild stat that I found earlier. Nobody on this team for Iowa averages over 5 rebounds a game. This is not the dominate the paint, grab offensive rebounds, and just slow the game down. That's not what they do. Bennett Sturz is a guy that's averaging almost 18 points a game, 5 assists, and shoots at 48% from the floor. They've got a couple of forwards that you need to worry about, but Indiana should be okay. You shouldn't have a horrible size disadvantage. They're bigger than you. You got 6'10" for one and 6'9" for the other, but their impact is minimal, at least up to this point, so I'm sure they'll have career days. But it's Tavion Banks and it's Bennett Sturz. Those are the guys you need to worry about. If you can stop their best players, their 2 best players, you have a chance to win this game. And I think at your best, Indiana's the better basketball team. But do you get that for 40 minutes? Do you get that for 2 halves of basketball? I don't know. You're back at home, so you feel good about at least Lamar Wilkerson shooting the ball. You feel good about Tatum Conaway shooting the ball. Tucker DeVries, I don't know. I've never seen a guy drop off as hard as he has. But this is not the Iowa of old. Folks, they average 31 rebounds a game. But they shoot the ball very, very well. 51% from the floor as a team. That's solid. That's solid. And Bennett Sturz is by far their 3-point threat. He shoots it at 38% on the year. He's made 39 of them. And he's shot over 100. Nobody else on the team's even close. They've shot half of that. Bennett Sturz is the guy to worry about. So then the question becomes, okay, who do you put him on? Or who do you put on him? It's got to be Conaway, right? Has to be Tatum Conaway. Stop him, you win the game. It's that simple. Play defense, use some effort, act like you give a crap, and maybe don't shoot 83s in this game unless they're falling and you beat them like you did Penn State where you were just hot for 40 minutes. I don't know. But, man, you talk about a game that Indiana really needs. You talk about a game that the Hoosiers, you want to say must have, right? No game is a true must-have unless it's in the tournament where your season's coming to an end. But you look at the stretch that Indiana's got coming up, buddy. I mean, you're in it right now. Back-to-back top 15 games. You get a break with Iowa, and then you go on the road to Michigan in the midweek. That's going to be ugly. You actually stay on the road, and you go to Rutgers. That'll be okay. And then you come home for Purdue. You're running out of wins that you can pencil in on your schedule, and this Iowa game is it. Saturday, 2 o'clock on Fox. We'll have post-game coverage for you right here on Locked On Hoosiers on the YouTube side of things. So be sure you check that out. Again, I think Indiana wins, but I don't really know. This team is about as unpredictable as they come. Is Indiana the better team? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Indiana's the better team. It's not even close. But I just don't know. At home, I like your chances. On the road, this team is a crapshoot. So that's coming up tomorrow. Again, we'll have a post-game show for you here on Locked On Hoosiers, plus any more bonus content with breaking news out of the transfer portal. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop your comments down below, follow us on your audio podcasting platforms as well. And if I don't see you between now and Monday, we'll preview the national championship game. We'll have basketball content coming up tomorrow for a live show on Locked On Hoosiers, and portal news is on the way. I can almost guarantee it. So all of that coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers. So until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.